Hey, welcome back to the channel. My name's Cody, and today I'm joined by a special guest, someone that I've known for quite a few years now of my adult life, but Jayson Ewert. Welcome to the channel.
Yeah,
Stoked
thanks,
to have you.
Cody. Appreciate you bringing me on as your first guest.
Yeah, my very first guest. And the reason I wanted to bring you on is you're in a couple different businesses in the real estate niche. You've got your
Yeah,
real estate license, you're building that up from ground zero and starting to do some deals, which is amazing. And you've got your actual real estate holdings across multiple different states, multiple markets in different states. And you've been scaling that pretty successfully. So, for those who are watching, have never heard of you, can you give a little bit of intro who you are?
yeah. Like you said, I'm Jason. Just about going to turn 30 years old in a little less than a year. I've got about a dozen rentals. One long-term rental, or sorry, one short-term rental. I've been in the real estate business full time for about a year now. Prior to that, I served in the Army as an officer for 6 years. So I moved around a handful of times, and somewhere in the beginning, I'd say first quarter of my career, I realized I didn't want to do that forever. Didn't want to be working 20 to 30 years just to get a okay retirement. So I was, not really like some of my peers in that way where they wanted the security. I liked the risk and I liked the idea of the entrepreneurial mindset. So 6 years later, like I said, about a dozen rentals, and now I'm helping other people do this by helping them as a licensed agent here in Colorado
That's
Springs. So
That's great. And as a business owner, since you do own your properties and you're starting
mhm.
to help other people do the same thing, what are the main driving factors for you for scaling? Is it just buying strategically based on appreciation? Are you buying for cash flow? Are you doing value add? What is the main driver there for your expansion?
Yeah, originally when I first started in 2020, around May, it wasn't really either. I just wanted to get in the game in some way. I didn't really know much, didn't have a mentor. I think I just met you probably a couple months after that first deal. So I just wanted to get myself in the game without really realizing it. Washington was certainly more on the appreciation side, especially with the timing around 2020 with COVID and such. There's been a ton of appreciation since that time. I'm sure you can attest to that as well. So I wasn't really doing that on purpose. I was just investing in my backyard, as they say. But as time went on, bought a few more in Washington State, a couple with you, Cody. And then I bought back in my hometown, Winona, Minnesota, which is almost exactly the opposite style of market. So there we bought a duplex for 160 or 170,000, converted it to a triplex. And the cash flow was like crazy. But it probably appreciated $12 in the last year. So I
Yeah, it's
like
not exactly
I
going up.
yeah, but it is nice. There are two sides to it. Uh, Eventually, I will not want real estate in multiple states, and my CPA won't either. But in a way, it's diversifying my portfolio at the same time. So I've got those appreciating properties in Washington. I've got the cash flow properties in Minnesota. Um, and then I've got a short-term rental here in Colorado where there's a ton of tourism. So I kind of saw that was a popular thing here. Ton of people visit in Colorado, so we use that essentially to offset our mortgage down here in Colorado Springs.
That's great. So when you're getting started, you just have to buy something, you can figure out how to actually acquire it, hold on to it. You're going to consolidate into more permanent assets in the future. Have you decided whether you're going to stay in just the Washington market or you're going to consolidate to Colorado? Have you decided
I
on
can I can see
Minnesota?
myself consolidating in Colorado. While it's not entirely one side or the other for tenant or landlord friendliness, it's closer to the middle than Washington is. And Washington's been great. In the end, it comes down to your property manager, and we've had some good luck. We've had some good leaders in the property management field. So even during COVID, so that has helped a lot. But I think since I'm out of the military now and I finally have established like a home here in Colorado, got married last year in July as well. So I really picture us staying here long term, and I picture myself investing here as well. Likely in the mid-sized multifamily realm, say 8 to 30 units. It is pretty expensive down here, but I'm growing a lot of connections and I'm seeing off-market deals here and there. So I think that's where I'm going to have the leg up, is that I actually will have several years, at some point in this market, meeting the people opposed to my 4 years in Washington, my 1 year in South Carolina, my 1 year in New York. I could acquire, during those times, but it's hard to really establish a sphere there and really commit to that market when you're going to move.
Yeah, so having the local advantage gives you a competitive edge over other people trying to buy there, maybe from out of state. I mean, maybe you have
Yeah,
a better competitive advantage than I would trying to buy in your neighborhoods because you can walk right down the street.
yeah,
As far as building out your business philosophy, you're buying hyper local now. You're helping people buy it up. That's very similar to what I did in Moses Lake. I couldn't buy everything, so found buddies to help buy up the
hmm,
that community. You definitely helped buy up some of the stuff and fix it up. I mean, you've done that in your value add peninsula duplex for sure.
yeah, for
Over
sure.
in Moses, you kept that blue
Yeah,
door.
yeah,
Maybe one day you'll swap it out.
we'll see.
But when you are taking up some of the Colorado Springs market, you're going to buy some multifamily there. You're selling some stuff. Do you have a business strategy to try and take down neighborhood by neighborhood, or are you really just trying to pick up an opportunity as it comes down?
Yeah, I would say, well, to start off, it is helpful to have your license when you're investing, although not required. And I would say most of the time, 90% of the time, it's not required. So those who are like, oh, do I need it? They're so busy on thinking, how do I make an LLC? Do I need to get licensed? How do I do this? How do I do that with a partnership? Just start with like step one. Stop worrying about step 30. Um, but I would say my strategy here is more on the latter of what you said, the if I find an opportunity and it seems like it would be good for me and one of my partners or my brothers or you, then hey, we look at it and it could be a potential deal that we take down. I'm at the point where we make a decent amount in cash flow a month, so I don't like need to buy more real estate to survive, which is pretty freeing because we still can. So I'm not getting myself into deals that, are really thin or don't make much sense. And I'm thinking more long term about the relationships I'm building with this and getting my two brothers involved in it, potentially my sister, helping build, generational wealth, helping people learn this. Because I do that, like I would say 70% of my clients are investors or want to be investors, probably more want to be, which is fine because I love the educational part of it. And then the other 30 is military, huge military area down here. We've got multiple bases. And I see the military as like how I was. They don't really know how the VA loan works, which is surprising sometimes. They don't know they have that in their back pocket to get their first duplex, get their first house and cottage type of house hack. So I see that as a really cool opportunity to help them out, especially if they don't want to stay in the military their whole career. In a way, you can kind of get trapped within the security blanket as you can in the corporate world as well.
Did the military give, other than the VA loan, did it give you any edge in business just for helping you scale, any
Yeah.
disciplines you might have gotten?
I would say directly, probably not, but maybe I can see there are a few ways. The VA loan is, okay, it's awesome. Yeah, it can really help you get that first deal, especially if you have no cash. But I guarantee I would be at or close to the same point I am now without that. Because it just helped with, you don't have mortgage insurance and the down payment. Um, I will say that I did like grow as a person a lot and learn myself and become more disciplined, which has translated to business more. I'd have people while I was in, because I don't know, especially as an officer, we worked a lot and we were gone a lot, and they're like, "How are you even doing anything else besides this?" I'm like, "Well, what do you do when you get home every night? What do you do on Saturdays? What do you do on Sundays?" Not that I worked all the time, but I realized that if I wanted to get out of my scenario I was in, it's not just going to magically happen. I needed to allocate time and energy and create a system in how I do it. I'm not finding these crazy off-market deals or, ridiculous properties that just fall in my pocket. It's been way more of just consistently a couple times a week by week, a couple years go by, being able to go, this is my next step, my most important next step. Do this week. What's the second step? Do this next week, whether or not I'm busy at work or not, because that's like a part of my why. So I was really tied to doing that every single week, because it was just like a part of me, and it's what I wanted to do, and it was where I wanted to grow as a person.
Okay. Since you've been scaling, you got out of the military, since I've known you, you were in it when we first met, and
Yeah.
you got out, you've been buying properties, you've been building up that empire. How simple is it? Do you own everything in your personal name? Do you have one bank account? Do you have a bank account for every property? As far as the systems go, for someone trying to replicate what you've done, maybe they're in the military, they got their VA, or like you mentioned, they probably don't need it. You
Mhm.
go do FHA. How complicated is this? Is it as simple as buying it in your own name and just having one bank account?
Yeah. I would say it can be pretty simple, especially if you take it step by step and don't compare yourself to somebody who has 100 or 150 or 1,000 units or even 5 units and you have zero. If you're thinking about how you get to eight before you think about how you get to two, you're going to be a little overwhelmed. So I would say it's simple when you take it step by step. So yeah, for people in the military or veterans that still have their VA loan, yeah, I mean, you have to buy it in your name with the VA loan when you acquire it. Live in it for intent to live in it for about a year. I think that's what the regulation says. Hopefully, it's a small multifamily or something that can generate some sort of income, like a cottage or a mother-in-law suite, like an Airbnb. But yeah, really, it's once you acquire it, live in it for some time. Hopefully, you do some renovations, and you get the potential rent up, which is what happened in my scenario, which was a combination of some forced appreciation and also some luck. I will admit there was some luck there with the timing in 2020, with rents going up and appreciation, and everyone thought it was crazy to buy around that time because prices were so high. But I just knew I needed to get into the game. So from there, in a way, it's almost easier to get your second, third, and fourth because you can pay for those with the equity and cash flow you have in your first property. So it kind of builds upon itself as you're acquiring. Now some things do get a little complicated. Like if you think about it, so I've got properties in 3 different states, with I don't know, 5, 6, 7 different mortgage companies with potentially 7 different utility companies, different rules in all those cities, all these taxes you have to pay. Thankfully, that's through the mortgage. So sometimes it can be like, okay, what is tied to what again? Is this insurance company tied with this property? But if anything, that's a good problem to have. I wouldn't let that stray you away from anything. At some point, like I said, I'm gonna want to consolidate. because I think of the life cycle of an investor. It's different for everybody, but for me, when I'm young, in my 20s, even in my 30s, acquiring and scaling is on the top of the list because I know how powerful time is with real estate, even just with compound interest with money. So I'll probably do that until age 35 or 40. Who knows? Maybe that'll keep moving. I think it's going to be hard to stop buying. Yeah, I would say it's not complicated. You just have to learn. You got to find somebody who's done it. If you're doing this all by yourself, it's going to be pretty tough. Go to networking events, meet somebody like I met Cody here who helped me buy my second, third, fourth deal.
And one thing I've noticed, it seems like you put everything in your personal name. A question that I actually do have for you is,
Yeah.
do you have one bank account for each individual property, or does all the money for your personal stuff go into that account?
So it's split in about three ways. I have about a third of my real estate in my personal name owned by just me. So that's, one in Tacoma, Moses Lake here. Uh, that's all tied to my personal bank account. So property manager gets the rent, deductions come out, fees come out, rent goes directly into my personal US bank account. So that's like real cash flow, actually, which is nice. I own a triplex with my brother. We have a joint account. It's still in our personal names. So we bought it like we're married almost, which is kind of funny, as joint tenants. Eventually, we're going to transfer that into an LLC because it just makes more sense as partners and have an agreement with that. Even though we're brothers, things can happen. And then the real estate I own with you is the same way. We have a separate bank account for that LLC that has those properties in it. So yeah, really in the end, it's the ones I'm partners with. We have our own business account, and the ones that I don't have partners on, that I bought in my personal name, it's in my personal account.
Great. That seems to be like the right way to do it if it's going to be your personal stuff. And one thing I've noticed for everything you bought, regardless of whether it's been with your brother, just you in the beginning, or stuff with me, seems like every piece of property, including your primary residence, has been an income producing piece of real estate. So even when it's been personal, and there's been a couple times for you for your primary residence, it's always been an investment decision first.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And people are at different stages of life. So you may be single and your scenario will look different versus if you're married and have two kids. So I bought all my real estate except for this primary residence before I was married. Got married, then we bought this. The thought that went into this one was okay, um, we want a place that we love. We just got married. We want to enjoy it. We want the area to be good. But on the other side, it's like we want that. Plus, we want it to make investment sense. So here in this market, that meant I wanted some form of income potential. We started looking at duplexes, and the quality of life there was slightly less than what we wanted. But hey, when I was single, that's what I did because I could do that, and I was fine with sacrificing some quality of life for a better return. I mean, in that first duplex, tenant B was living in there paying rent. I was living in my side, but I was like, let's take it a little further and get a roommate. So I had a roommate on my side in Unit A. Now, when we bought this house, like I said, we shifted the scale a little bit more towards quality of life, slightly less for investment sense, but there's still the investment aspect there. So it short-term rental we run out of our basement, has a separate entrance and everything, covers about 50 to 60% of our monthly costs on the mortgage. So that works really well for us. And I will say it's super important and I'm definitely blessed to have my spouse on board with all of this because I guarantee there are girlfriends, boyfriends, spouses out there listening who are like, "Oh yeah, I would never, I would never let somebody stay in my basement, even if it's locked. So people are at different levels. They have different levels of comfort. And I think in the end, really most levels of that can work unless you're just like, no, I'm not willing to do anything. Then, I don't think really anything makes sense for you. Maybe you should just buy stocks.
Yeah, and there's a lot more businesses than just real estate.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll ever venture into other businesses outside of the real estate space? Because you got your rentals, you've got the real estate brokerage, which is starting to pick up after a year. Is there anything else that you think you will jump into?
I can't really see myself straying too far away from real estate. I think I can picture myself maybe in the property management realm. That's probably it. I will say I am fascinated with taxes. I'm not going to become a CPA, but I love helping people learn how you get benefits from real estate through taxes. And it's something I feel like people ignore a lot. So yeah, I'll probably stay with rentals. Probably not going to go into office spaces or commercial spaces, but I've always had my eyes set on a slightly larger multifamily because the economy of scale there. You got one roof, easier to manage because the property manager just has to go to that one building to manage the, say, 20 units. It's just convenient for them and probably cheaper. So I would say probably not, depending on how long I stay in the brokerage world. But so far, I'm liking it here. I like helping people out, and I just happen to also get paid for it, which is kind of cool. Especially the people who are buying their first or second property. It's super rewarding seeing their potentially their life change, say 10 years, even 5, 20 years down the road. Oh my gosh, like I bought this property and it's doubled in value, and I barely did anything to it. It's like those are the scenarios that I'm like, that's great. And it's cool what people are getting into the field for. Some people want to help support their mom or someone sick in their family, or they just want a better life for their kids and their kids' kids and really their generation, which I think is one of the most exciting parts of this.
Sure helps build relationships if you do those meaningful things for folks.
Yeah.
To help basically as like a guiding compass, do you have any principles and foundations that you don't really stray from in the real estate business? It could be for brokerage or it could be for ownership.
Yeah, I would say for on the brokerage side, I really, I'm kind of like, it was nice that I started off as an investor and then I got my license. So when I have some experience in it and I know how to run analysis on deals. So I try to not let clients buy something that doesn't make financial sense. If they're trying to buy as an investment, there's going to be people who just wanted to buy a house, which is fine, and that works. And I'm going to work hard to get them a good deal on it. But on the acquiring real estate side, I would say I have some more like numbers. So I try to go for at least $200 in cash flow a month per door. And that's conservative. So I'm adding in vacancy costs, capital expenditure costs in the future, a couple percent for that, maintenance, and all sorts of stuff that just like taxes. So everyone, it's for some reason people forget that when they buy, the chances are next year their taxes are going up, especially if we buy this house for 500,000 this year and it sold for 350 2 years ago. Taxes are going to go up. So I would say my answer to that is the analysis part. I do not stray away from that. I also do not get emotional about this process, and that's super important. And that when I have a client who's not emotional, like the client I just had, goes really smoothly. You don't get stuck in scenarios you don't want to get stuck in. I think that is, especially in real estate, when you might be living in these properties and owning them for your whole life and passing on to your kids. I try to keep it at 90% investment minded, just so there's no bad decisions being made. Because I mean, as you know, you can make 10 offers and get nothing. And that can be kind of rough for some people. So just knowing that this is how it works, and working with your agent or whatever, or if you're licensed, yeah, just keep going at it.
Great. So for those the takeaway to get there is don't be emotional about your business in general.
Yeah.
And it always falls back on the numbers because business is about making money so that you can use the money to make impact or
Yeah,
other
and
things.
then I would say, yeah, treating it like a business is important. It's so easy to treat it like a hobby, especially if your property is like across the street or if you live in it. It was nice in a way that I don't live near most of my properties, so it has forced me to treat it like a business. I can't go take a call from a tenant and go fix their toilet, even if I wanted to. I guess I could get on a plane and go visit, but that's made it force me to create systems since they're spread across 3 different states. Yeah, and yeah, like you said, treating it like a business is, I think, how you win in the long term. And that's my other thing is I think long term on this. I already think about how it will work, passing on to kids, step up tax basis, and all that complicated stuff. Because I'm not just buying for me, I'm buying for my family, what it can do for my family, being able to give and just be blessings to other people.
That's a good thing to be a forward thinker. The
Yeah.
last thing I want to round this off with before we close out, we've been partnered now for a couple years. What do you think are the contributing factors that have made the partnership work?
Yeah. I would say that, I mean, obviously by far is trust. So I didn't just message you and say, hey, you want to invest in this deal? And like you send me money. We met multiple times. When you were licensed, Cody was my agent. We developed trust through that. We kind of were friends too. I know people say don't get into business with friends, but you usually have trust with your friends. And the smart thing we did is that we have operating agreements because we both are smart enough to realize that things are not always going to be the same. I got married. Things change in that scenario. Kids change scenarios. So 10 years down the road, if I'm like, let's sell Cody, and you're like, let's keep Jayson, we have an operating agreement that can help us do that as smoothly as possible. So it's not emotional, going back to the emotions thing. Yeah, and then again, I would say somebody that isn't like you but compliments you. That's important. Because if me and you were exactly the same, we were good at the same stuff. It's just like two of the same person. And it's 1 + 1 = 2. If I'm good at certain things and you're good at other things, and we do those things, it's like 1 + 1 = 3. We get more of a benefit out of the partnership when we have our own skills and we do those things. And then the things we're bad at, we hire out. And I'm not afraid to do that. I'm super big on, there are people way better than me at many things within the real estate world, especially property management, dealing with tenants, hands-on things, fixing stuff. I'm not trying to do this all by myself. So I think that's kind of why you and I work really well together. We luckily have a similar mindset on things. You've obviously scaled more than I have, but that's fine. It doesn't really matter. Um, yeah, I think that answers that pretty good.
Great. Well, I appreciate that answer. For those who
Yeah.
want to follow you on, I think you're on Instagram or Facebook, where would they find you?
Yeah, I would say I'm most active on Instagram. It's just Jayson Ewert, so JaysonEwert. I'm sure we can link it in the video or something.
We can link it in the video. So I will put that link in the description. Make sure to check him out. And then if you haven't already, hit subscribe. Appreciate you following all the way through this 30-minute video. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks.